There you go.
Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Andy, I've been told this is March, and for that reason, we are contractually obligated to do.
I got a story right after that. My God, I tried to fit this into a tweet, and I just couldn't do it. But you know what? I am going to throw them under the bus. Fuck Lowe's. The homes. I don't know if you have those in California. It's a big home store or home whatever store, and I had to clean up some snow.
Home improvement,
because that's what it does here. It snows, and I don't know how many people understand how a snowblower. I have a big snowblower because I have a decent driveway. I broke a shear pin, which is a pin that is meant to break under stress instead of ruining the shaft that goes back to the engine. So it's a part inside there that breaks on purpose when you like catch a rock or something, a big rock.
Yeah.
Instead of, so
it's a fuse.
Yeah, basically it is kind of like a fuse. So I went to get. I apparently was out. You know, it's a consumable. I went to get one from Lowe's, and they're like, "Oh, the lady first just didn't know it. Oh, you want to buy a snowblower? No, I have a snowblower. I need a shear pin." And finally, she goes and finds someone. She's like, "Yeah, we put all that stuff away." And I'm like, "This is March." And I realized what I'd said, and then I'm like trying to be mad, and I just started like laughing to myself. I'm like, but either way, I am mad that they put that stuff. Like, come on, it's Minnesota. We've had huge snowstorms in May. Give me another month. Like they have all the seeds out. There's 8 inches of snow in my garden. Like I'm going to be planting geraniums right now. So.
The most likely time to need a shear pin is at the end of the snow season.
Yeah,
I would guess. I mean, presumably at the very beginning, if you didn't bother replacing one the end of last season, you would need one. But you've been using that thing all year, I'm sure. Winter weather out here in California, of course, as well. Thankfully, it's not.
Are you wearing your high waters?
Indian Wells.
Are you okay?
It's not that bad.
Okay.
At least for now, when the snow starts melting in the spring, we have had a absolute record year. They're about to set records at Mammoth for snowfall, and it is the middle of March, which means we still have more snow to come. Good for skiing, good for water, good for people in the long run, bad for flooding when the snow starts to melt. All that said, we're here to talk about college basketball, Andy, because it is March Madness, and this is an all-time gambling event on the calendar. Period. Doesn't matter if you barely even watch college basketball over the balance of the season, like yours truly. This matters, and so you're going to take advantage of bracket pools. You're going to take advantage of Calcuttas. You're going to take advantage of survivor pools. There are a million different ways to get involved from a gambling perspective.
Bracket. Fun one. I was sent that by our friend Rico DeGaio. He sent me a pool. You pick a 1 seed, you pick a 2 seed, all the way down. You can only pick one of the 4, and you get points for how far they advance. Like, so everyone has it's almost like DFS, I guess. You get 16 teams if you're choosing.
That's
and you
cool.
Get points based on. So that one's a fun one. I'm going to do multiple entries in that tomorrow. After 5th year option, I'm going to spend a lot of time on brackets. I haven't really spent time on that, but today we're going to talk some Calcutta stuff. We know some people that are doing one tonight. A lot of them
tonight is big time Calcutta night. Yeah.
But Delon, I don't know. I'm not good with names. He has to say, fellows, if it's not too much trouble, can you discuss what a Calcutta is? Well, a lot of it will come along the way, but basically it's an auction. And it's, you go in with however many people you want. Essentially, you wouldn't want too many people. But you could have anywhere from, like, I suppose some of the small ones you see are like 8 to 10 people up to a lot more than that. And it's like an auction draft in fantasy. except with money that you actually have to spend, and you pick a team. You bid on teams against other teams based on their performance, you will receive part of the pot based on how the rules are drawn out. It is very popular in golf. It's one of the most popular ways to like bet on golf like that. I know even like where I grew up, my home club tournament, after they got everyone set into the flights they should be in, like these are just like people that in town. They would have a Calcutta after that, and you could buy, there's people that you can buy yourself if you want. Like I think I'm going to do really well, and I'm worth more than that. So a lot of these in March Madness will have unique rules where it's not just based on how well a team does, because why the shit would you ever buy a 16 seed that they're not going to advance? You're not going to win the championship, but they throw in fun rules to encourage bidding on every team, such as you can get 1% of the total pot if your team loses by the most amount in the first round, which is a very common one. There's usually some other fun ones, like the team in the first round with the biggest upset by seeding. If there's a 15 were to win, it's obviously that could be chopped with another person if there's a tie. I remember in the NFL ones in the playoffs, there were the same kind of thing, like the team to lose by the most, the team to cover the spread by the most. Yeah. Basically, the sky's the limit on creating the rules for these. You can get them as complicated as you want. You can make them as top heavy as you want. Christ, you can make it winner take all. Like if you really wanted to have no fun at all, like just nobody would. You just say, "Hey, we're gonna bid until people say I'm done." Like we're not buying
that you're kind of making a couple of key distinctions that I think are worth kind of digging in on a little more on what is a Calcutta. My first introduction to it was absolutely through the college basketball landscape, because this is sort of the right number of things to bid on, right? Like that's kind of important. You want, and the number of participants is important too. You touched on it. In my opinion, like 10 to 12 is about right.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And 60-ish things to auction off is about right. Any more than that, and it kind of gets bogged down time wise. Any less than that, and some people don't get teams, and they're like, why did I waste my time? So there's a little bit of a balancing act in terms of how many people you invite, and and in general, what you're trying to auction off. Like for the golf ones.
Point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Really good point by you as far as like having too many things to auction off. Like in a lot of the golf ones, and we've seen this with the ones that Rufus and Jeff have put together, it's basically the top 50 golfers, and then they start selling them in lots. Where,
bundles,
yeah, you're
groups,
getting 5 golfers at a time. And it's crazy. Was that Logan that had...
He got Mickelson in a bundle.
Mickelson was like a group of 5. He certainly wasn't bidding on Phil, and he ended up taking a big chunk of the pot with a bundle that he bought for other reasons, essentially, which is pretty fun. So it's really fun. It's just another way to have some action in it, and also, if you really like a team, it's something you can go after. We'll kind of get into that.
Yeah,
but. Let's save some more of the dynamics for later, because that's really the fun part to talk about.
The nuts and bolts of the structure, I think, are fun.
There's even websites now that
I know
facilitate it.
Yeah, all your office pool does a couple done right. They're out there. This is becoming more and more popular. I've gotten requests from our friend group and other people. Like, hey, do you know any Calcuttas? And you know what the important question to ask is? Like, this level of total pot size, because the total pot size does drive your overall activity, right? If you're getting involved in $1 million pot, you just be prepared for, you want some team, they're going to go for 20, 30K, right? Like you just need to be ready for that. If you're going for a Calcutta that, the pot's in the 20 to 100K range, then your skin in the game for any team could be 500 to 1,000, right? So it's a little, it's a little bit. You want to be in a pool with players who are a similar amount of liquidity, and you really, really don't want to be in a Calcutta where you are the aggressively small stack, because then you're just simply bidding, and then you kind of like, well, I've been priced out because I can only my reserve that price for any given team is tight, and I'm not going to go $1,000 over my reserve for this team because I have low confidence in my projections because I don't know shit about college basketball. So it's it's a little bit of a game about understanding the group of people you're playing with. And
I think a really good way to get the range is like, and everybody does that. Like even just now, our friend, not Brinson, other Will, he posted, "Hey, here's a Calcutta," and he posted in the same message. He says the pot was about this last year, because he knows that's going to be the first question. So you can take the favorites. They're usually it's going to be somewhere in the 10-1 range.
Yeah, and
then realize like a lot of the teams that are 100-1, and you can do some pretty quick math and say a favorite's like 8 to 10% chance to win. So if it's close, you're going to say, hey, if this was a $50,000 pot. This team's probably going to go in the 4,000 to 6,000 range. Know that's what Houston, that's what Bama, that's what the big teams are going to go. But also know the smaller teams are probably going to go for less than 1% of the pot, and that's kind of going to be your range. That'll be a good way to figure out if it's the right Calcutta for you.
Yeah, because the opposite is true too. If you get in one where you expect a pot in the 10 to 50K range, and you're bidding away on the first team, and you're like, all right, Duke's up first. Okay. $500. And then it's just crickets. And then you're like, uh-oh. Okay, now I have to price enforce to make sure that I didn't wildly overbid on the first team.
Let's put a pin in that because the first team is so important.
Oh, the first team is so important. Yes, that's kind of the key. You do enough Calcutta. You do probably two Calcuttas, and with the relatively inexperienced groups, and you figure out that the bargains are usually the first team. But
and I mean, it is similar to like just anyone who's done. Hey, I've done fantasy football for years, and then they do an auction draft, and like, I am fucked. I don't know what I did here. Like it's just it is a lot different dynamics. So let's take a couple steps back from that first team and talk prep. And I did mention the odds, and I kind of point out, I put down of steps that I would take, getting into one of these for any sport. And I mean, we're going to use basketball as an example, but like we said, golf is very, very popular. Yep. And just like a lot of things that we do here, like the market is going to give you a pretty good indication of where the pricing should be. And I do feel like you can go as simple or as complicated as you want with this. Like if you're in a really sharp Calcutta and, maybe you do want to spend a little more time with this, but honestly, like just setting some market pricing for these teams, I wouldn't even go past like the 10 seeds on some of this stuff. Those teams are all going to be so close to 0% to win. Maybe depending on the payouts, you need to look at a bunch. That's the thing too. Before you do anything, know the rules, because you're going to have to set percentages for a few different things.
Sure.
You need to know, like, hey, if there's a payout just for making the Elite Eight, Final Four, something like that.
Yeah, no,
you're gonna have to spend some time on that. But
just stick with your first point though, which before you getting to kind of the side pots, the most important thing is correctly pricing the shape of the field in terms of win probability.
You just take a no vig kind of, and it sucks because the vig isn't exactly dispersed properly from Alabama to Texas A&M Corpus Christi, but you can get a pretty good view. And, I would say, take a sports book, take a couple of analytical sites like Torvik or KenPom, and then maybe if you can find pricing in an exchange or just another sharp sports book, three or four indicators like that, and use it to build out some sort of composite percentages.
Yeah.
To get just a baseline, say like if I take these three things, which is 9% of the time Alabama wins the title, and then once you have that, Drew, you
guess what? You know what? First of all, guess what? I'm not going to be able to come up with a data and analytical package for projections of winning percentages that's better than KenPom or Bart Torvik if I started this week. It's not happening. They've been doing this for years, and these guys, they tempo adjust, they opponent adjust. It is very, very good data. Okay, so there are lots of those, and they're all free, and it's freaking awesome that these guys do this. Okay. And if I takes 2 clicks on Bart's site, bang, bang, here I have percentages for a team to reach each stage of the tournament. Okay. Now, what's kind of fun and the way that Calcutta is different than just like if I told you like, man, I really want some skin on UConn, right? I got eyes for UConn. I'm gonna go get him in the big boy Calcutta, right? Like if that's like my point of view, and I'm like, well, how much do you think they're gonna go for? I don't know, maybe like 10, 12K, something like that. People be like, if you like UConn that much, just go bet them in the futures market. Like, what do you do? Like, you don't be an idiot.
There's the answer.
Why would you bother? Like with the Calcutta, and the reason is the payout structure is unique in a way that gives you lots more flexibility. Well, first of all, it's VIG free.
Most of that is another thing to look at too.
Right.
Most of these are going to be VIG free. Like most of it is just, hey, it's buddies chopping up the money at the end. But there are, double check that too. I've seen a couple now where there is like a 1% rake. Just kind of that's something that needs to be in your calculations, knowing that some of these percentages are going to be slightly off based on that.
But in general, it's a no rake situation. Yeah. No, Jesus Christ. Well, find a different Calcutta then. Or start your own one that doesn't have a rake, because that's insane. Because that's illegal, by the way. I don't know if it's illegal.
That starts to it is. I mean, it's just like anyone who's watched Molly's game.
You're running you're running a poker game with a rake, you're in trouble. Yeah. You cross the line. Yeah. Now you're a target for the Russian organized crime. No, the point I was going to make about the progressive payout is you put money down on a team, and it's a lot like each way type of payout for those people who are familiar with sort of European structure for golf tournaments or tennis or whatever. Like you get a certain amount of your stake back for winning round 1, for winning round two. Maybe you identify a 4 or 5 seed that you like, and if they win their Sweet 16 game, then you're in the black. Right. And then you're basically free rolling as far as they can go in the rest of the tournament. Right. And so that you put that money to work in a much more, kind of fungible way, malleable way. It's a lot more flexibility. You have a lot more flexibility.
Both good words.
You have a lot more flexibility in terms of ways you can kind of take your equity out. You're not just sitting there like, oh my God, I have a future that could pay life-changing money. Do I hedge? If I want to hedge, where am I even getting the money to hedge? Right? Like it's not a matter of asking any of those questions, because you're literally talking about, okay, progressive nature. I'm now in the black or in the red on this given team, on this given bet I made. And the way it usually goes is a team that's, 1 seed, they got to make the Final Four for you to make your money back, right? You're going to be in the red unless they, go to the Final Four. But if they do, then the Final Four game and the national championship, potentially you got a little bit of a free roll. You don't have to necessarily truly hedge. So those are interesting parts and fun ways to play. And so I think to your point, you don't just care about, what are the fair probabilities of each team winning this championship. You care about what are the fair probabilities of them winning at every stage.
Yeah, understanding where you can get paid and what kind of multiplier you'd need, because it's like, hey, if this team makes the final four, I get 30% of the pot, which is $18,000, and they're a team I'm going to pay like less than 1% of the pot for. That's very different from, hey, I bought Gonzaga in years past. And it's like, it's like, oh, that's a break even, to get to like the Elite Eight or something like that. Yeah. And you said something interesting, because obviously the next step is identify, just like anything in betting, you look at the market, you identify where you think the numbers are wrong, or you think there's an edge to be had based on not only the rules, but just, the pricing. Maybe some of the edge on some of the props, like biggest loss or things like that. You take that and add that in. And you said, hey, if we started and tried to put something better than the market, than Torvik, than anybody, and you were wrong. You said if we started this week, we wouldn't be able to. if we started this week, we wouldn't be able to for next year's tournament. Like, so, it leads to what's the point?
Yeah.
Well, that comes down to, I think, maybe figuring out where you think you can find value. And it's going to be so different based from Calcutta to Calcutta.
Of course.
If you're in one with your buddies and the local team is in the tournament and everyone loves him, and it just, again, I keep going back to fantasy football, but you see this all the time where, hey, I live in this state and the star player from our local team goes a lot higher than his ADP, because everybody wants to have that guy on their team. It's more fun because we cheer for that football team. You do see things like that. Obviously, you get into the big serious ones, little less of that, but kind of understanding maybe what teams could be overbid based on what you know about yours, if you've been in it for years, if there's always somebody who's going to buy one team.
Yeah, local variations. Yeah.
Truthfully, like
regionalism.
Go read some articles and find some teams that people are fading. Like, oh man, Tennessee can't do it now that they have they're missing their player. He's injured. Like, is Tennessee screwed? Like, if it's really widely known stuff like that, that's all over, splashed up all week long, like those teams might be cheap. And again, you see the market price for, let's just use Tennessee. You see the market price for Tennessee, and that's not going to move. It could, obviously the futures can move around, but for the most part, those are set now. That's going to be what it is. But if everybody's scared off of a team and, let's say they have a 3% chance by the market, and nobody wants to seem to bid 3% of the pot because nobody wants the team that everybody's fading, it's not exciting to have a team like that could have an injury that's going to screw you. But if you're getting them for 80% of fair price, it's just going to be the plus EV moves. And and then of course, if it's something you specialize in, like if you are, some of these people that do the golf Calcutta that are putting together their own numbers, betting hundreds of thousands into golf every week, like, they're just going to have guys like, hey, like, I disagree with the market anyway. If everybody is within 5%, of the number, and I think there's a definite edge, I'm just going to buy this guy for more.
Yeah.
Take us back to the first team and how that, I think you'll
actually, real quick to close the point you were making. There are a couple of tips I can give people for this particular application. If you're listening and you're doing a Calcutta on Wednesday before the tournament starts on Thursday or something, and you're like, man, I really wish I'd kind of gotten more tips of how to win this thing, right? Well, the Bart Torvik is one source. Going with one source only is not always the best. Using some sort of blended number, AJ is Phil Tennessee, using some sort of blend across a couple of different projections, that is smart in my opinion. Using a blend between season-long data and recent data is smart, in my opinion. And you can weight these however you feel is appropriate. I don't think there is a true correct mathematical answer. You probably, if you had 10 years of data, maybe you would say, shut up, you're stupid. There's, of course, a mathematical answer. It's obviously 65-35, you idiot. But I don't know, I don't think you're going to get granularity, better projections one way or the other than if you just kind of use what your gut would say in terms of, I'm going to use a season's worth of data that Bart Torvik projects, and I'm going to use the last 10 games and just try to capture a little bit of a heat index on some teams. And then maybe the most important resource of all, because it reflects the totality of everyone's opinion in a dollars and cents way, is the sharp market futures. And you take those numbers, you convert them to probabilities, and you take the VIG out. And then you have a set of projections that is probably more strong and more signal than even what you're going to get from Bart Torvik numbers, even what you're going to get from Ken Palm numbers, right? And so how you weight that with whatever projections you've got is also an interesting question. Now, let's say you're like, well, I thought you said it was important. I needed to know round 1, round 2, round 3. What am I supposed to? How am I supposed to get those? I only have championship odds here. Well, take the shape of the percentages from a Bart Torvik and normalize them to whatever championship percentages you get from a Pinnacle, a Chris, and then bang, there you go. You basically got what kind of step-by-step progression ought to be for a team, but then you re-centered it on the correct correct championship odds. And from all of this, you now have a set of fairs that is strong. And the next important thing you need to know is the rules of your tournament, right? What are the side pots? Come up with some innovative way to come up with winning percentages for your side pots.
Yeah.
And then,
and I think that's going back to like, how do I find which teams I think I should be betting on? Start digging through the same thing could go for, just looking at regions. If there's side pots for winning a region, making the Final Four gives you 2% of the pot or whatever. Make some prices for that based off the books, and then start looking for just like, hey, here's some mid seeds, some 4, 5, 6s that are going to be a little cheaper that kind of have an easy path. And there's a million ways to do that. Just start adding up all the efficiency numbers for all the the worst possible scenario for them, and start looking at other scenarios. And I think you're going to find some teams like, I think this is a fun path for a 6 seed to maybe make the Elite 8 here.
You don't need an advanced degree in mathematics to do this. You don't need a coding skills to do this. You can do all of this in Excel, and you can do it all of it in an hour. What you want to do at the end of the day is have a sum of how much is this particular pot worth? What is my team's percentage of getting that pot? And then sum them all up, and then Gonzaga is worth 7% of the total pot. Okay, so you want what every team is worth in terms of percentage of the ultimate pot going into your auction.
Yep, have those numbers, and ideally have them in a spreadsheet. So this is the most important thing, and we've been kind of leading to this for a while, because you almost let the cat, and people who have done this know this, but you did kind of let the cat out of the bag a little on the first bid. Like the first team is so important. And, in a lot of these Calcuttas, and especially the golf ones, it's almost predictable because you understand what the pot size is going to be. And I think everybody in those knows, like, it's going to be around this many Rufus coins, and this is kind of the number we're shooting for. But this can make it a little unpredictable, and somebody can be left holding the bag, or the rest of the bids follow suit. There's enough smart people that understand, like, hey, this is where it's headed, or it's a new Calcutta and nobody knows where the pot's going. But again, if a team, and again, let's just use one of the favorites, if a team is 10% likely to win the championship, and again, there's going to be other pots that they could win along the way, let's just say roughly that bid should come somewhere around 10% of the total pot. Let's just say they're 10% likely to win that money. Mm-hmm. You start looking at that, and you can use that first bid to kind of readjust. Here's what I think the pot should be, and that's why I say have a nice Excel setup.
Yes,
or Google Sheets. Nobody uses Excel anymore, but have it all set up so it'll take that and say, here's my total pot based on the first one, and everything updates. Well, I think Arizona is now worth $498. I think Kentucky is worth $1,228. Like, it just automatically updates. And, I mean, geez, if you ever watched the ones with golf, Rufus is updating his total pot after every bid.
There's a very straightforward way to do that.
Yeah.
Like a super duper, like one cell and one equation to do that. So this is kind of the most important part of the dynamic.
It'll make it a lot easier if you do the legwork on this.
If you're trying to scoop EV, the most important part of the dynamic is literally going in with an estimate of the total pot. That implies who you're bidding with and what their general tolerance is in terms of how much skin they're going to ultimately put in the game. Hey, we got 20 friends. I think they all want to get involved to the tune of $500 to $1,000. My pot estimate is $10,000, right? Like that kind of philosophy of coming up with an estimate of what you think the pot will get to was a super important step one. And then step two is, after that first team is bid, readjust. And the way you readjust is straightforward. You take the price it went for divided by your share of the win probability, and then that becomes this is now our estimated pots, or that bid implies the pot will get to $20K, right?
Yeah, again, if you had it at 10%, and it's
Yeah.
if it's 10% team went for $50,000, it's like, oh, we have a $500,000 pot.
Oh, this is much bigger,
Yeah.
right? And so
that's where the biggest surprise is.
Yeah.
But keep adjusting, because like you said, in your little scenario where you bid $500 on Duke and then nobody said anything, it was crickets, you won in the first bid, you take that information and you say, all right, I think the pot will be X, but I'm probably very high on that.
Yeah.
Like if there's healthy bidding and it comes to a general conclusion after that first one, after 2 or 3 guys are in it, and I think you can probably say I'm within like 5 to 10% of what the pot should be at this point, and my numbers are close. But like in your scenario where you probably went over the top way too quick, way too fast, it's probably going to take 3 or 4 teams to kind of hone in where you're going to be at that point. And
or you just end up playing defense.
Yeah. Explain what you meant by
real one kind of closing thought. I'm glitching again. Sorry, man. I don't know what's happening. It's working. It's trying. It's efforting. Real quick on the pot estimated pot, refreshing that. And I don't know if I'm coming through or glitching, but if you've got 5 teams and 5 prices known, sum the implied probability, or the share of those 5 teams, sum the total, and divide them. So basically, every time you put in this team went for this price, you can it should automatically update. We're going here. And honestly, like, put 2 cells side by side. It's like, I think this is a 50K pot. And then watch as the updates. Well, the first bid says it's only going to be a 20K pot. The second bid says it's 40. Third bid says 60. Fourth, fifth. Okay, now we're at about 50. I don't need to adjust anything. Keep it all fixed. But then once you have 5, maybe even 10 teams all bid on, and those prices, then flip flop and use the updated, the dynamic pot estimate to come up with your fair prices.
Yeah, your fair should update after every sale.
Yeah.
And as we kind of described the nightmare scenario where you bid on Duke, got him for $500, and it turns out, like, if you just go with the market pricing, it should have been like a $300 team, and you done fucked up. But the opposite can happen. You can have there can be some trepidation to buy right away.
Always.
This happens more often than not, I think, where you can buy some teams, and some of these early teams end up being like, all right, I bought a team for $300. It's implied they win 5% of the time. The pot should be $60,000 or whatever it comes out to.
Because you know why this is the case? Because even if you are playing with high stakes players, there are people in that room bidding with you who are using their gut, that don't have fair numbers.
Well, no, and
they're going to be a little bit hesitant early to just get a sense of what are some of the other teams going with. Okay, because like what they're going to do is write it down and be like, okay, well, if Duke went for 500, then Tennessee should go for 600. Right? Like that's kind of the way they're going to think about it. And they're going to use the first handful of teams as data to then make bids later. Like they didn't come in with a spreadsheet and a plan. So always people in the pool like that. And so, yeah, in general, 90, I think if you're in a Calcutta with, let's say it's mostly newbies, a handful of people have done a couple. Some people, this is their first time. Almost as a rule, the first 2 teams that go will be value by the end of the Calcutta, because people will underprice what they think the pot will get to, because they're going in like, yeah, I'm gonna play $500 worth, and then you get to the end and they're like, oh my God, I don't have any teams. And the pot projection is now double what I thought it was going to be. I'm going to bet 500 on just one team,
Anyway,
you know, like I need some skin. All right.
No.
And so there almost every, even with experienced players with good numbers and good fares and high stakes, the pot tends to escalate as you go from team 1 to team X. And if the pot is escalating,
find the early teams
then yes, the early teams will almost always have EV. Yeah.
So like the most important thing is to do the legwork, do the prep work, get your spreadsheet set up so you can be updating as fast as possible, have the best information constantly. But probably the biggest step once you're actually doing it is you plan on buying a team early.
Yeah,
even
if it's a team you don't really like. Yeah, it's think of a team you've been trashing across social media and across legacy media all week, and they become the first team. You should still probably go for them.
That's a fun part too.
Buy it.
A lot of it just is. Some do throw a team out. In golf,
I've
hosted the Golf Calcutta a couple times.
Yeah,
so I put all the names into a website that randomizes it. And then don't tell anybody because you don't know when things are coming out. It's always fun when a massive name comes up first, like, hey, Scotty Scheffler right off the bat, guys. Like, let's get weird and set up like 12% of the pot right here. But yeah, the you don't have to, but I find if there's a team that comes out early and it's a team you like, you should buy them. Don't get over your skis and go way over if you think the pot is going to come in and somebody else is really fighting you on it. But most of the time, the bidding will escalate. The pot will go up slightly as you go, and you're going to end up with some decent value.
I like it. So the step so far, if we were to recap, use public sources and the market ! To come up with what fair prices for every team, double check the rules and come up with some innovative way to price the side pots. And then, if you want to do a qualitative level of, hey, I think these are going to be underbid. I think these are going to be overbid because, hey, I'm doing this in North Carolina and everybody loves the ACC schools. And so I'm going to go ahead and assume that those are going to go for higher than they're worth. And I think everybody kind of forgets about the Pac-12 or undervalues the Mountain West. I'm going to highlight those teams and try to go for them. Like, you can do some kind of planning on the front end, estimate the pot, have fair price for every team going in, and then update it at every step. And I think, you're well on your way to having a successful Calcutta. Now, some other lessons learned if you're playing with like some sharp players, high stakes players, like the one that Jeff and Rufus do. Everybody has done the exact same thing in pricing, and the fares are pretty close.
Crazy how they all come in
pretty close. Once there is a general sense of where the pot's going to land, pretty much to the dollar. And so it becomes, the last 2/3, once it's kind of settled and everybody's pot projection is the same, the last 2/3 of it is literally, I'm grabbing some teams at fair prices and I'm hoping to run good because there's really not like but there's also an element of knowing the players that you're playing with, right? Like, this guy, I know from a couple of Calcuttas in a row now, he wants teams that have a realistic chance to win. He's not trying to scoop EV on the 7 and 8 teams. He's going for favorites. I know it. Like, he wants blue bloods, right? This guy, he's going to stick relatively closely to his reserve price. He's not going to go over. He's not going to make a minus.
Yeah,
EV
there are
bet,
10. It's just like poker. Knowing people's tendencies. There's going to be some guys that they'll overpay for the team they want. Yeah, they'll the people that are just going to sit and scoop all the low hanging fruit. And then also,
another this guy real quick. This guy, because I think we're kind of describing general people that will exist in almost every Calcutta.
I'm picturing the one side.
The other guy is I have a beef with him and I'm going to make sure that if I can read that he likes a team, I'm going to bid just to drive the price up on that guy. There's that guy's in there for sure. And there's a guy in there who's like, oh shit, I might have overbid on a couple of teams and got stuck with some teams I don't like. Now I got to price enforce. And price enforcement is fucking wild because you get to a tipping point where you're like,
am I driving this up anymore, or am I buying this?
Yes, am I driving this up or am I buying this? And there is a tipping point if you're well capitalized enough in your Calcutta pool that you're like, my best way out of this is to buy everything. It's just to wipe this out, wipe this clean. Know that I'm going to be coming. I might take a small loss, but I'm not going to take a big loss, right? Because at some point, you go from bidding against yourself to protecting yourself if you are taking a lot of teams off the table, particularly the teams that have huge equity, right? Like I've definitely been in those where, somebody wanted a guy, went early, wanted a team, it went early, it went for more than we all thought it should have gone for. And then the next thing you know, like that guy has to bid every single big team net left. He ends up winning a bunch of them. And now it's like, well, he's got 3/4 of the pot. He'll probably win 65% of the pot, right? He might win 3/4 back, right? But it's very, very, very tough to win 100% of the pot back. So you kind of acknowledge at that point, like you're trying to break even, and that'll happen. So yeah, kind of fun. Price enforcement is
very different because we are talking NCAA too. Obviously very different than golf where, we pay out a lot of those pay out top 10, top 20 things, whatever like that. And, granted, the more golfers you have, the less chance you have to get all of them in the top 10. There's a negative correlation.
Of course, there's a negative correlation.
The negative correlation here is the bracket format.
Of course.
Oh shit! I bought two teams that play each other in the first round. Hopefully they win by 60. You do need to.
You have a funny incentive if you, of course, and that actually for sure plays into strategy among your pool because you may have a guy in your pool who you think might be
to keep track of who has who.
Yeah, you think this guy might be small stack, and he got a 1 seed or a 2 seed in a bracket, like go to that little section and basically assume that he's out. He's not taking anyone else in the East if he got Purdue as the 1 seed there, because like that's his horse. Like not gonna, realistically not intending to truly take home any of those other guys. So that's a fun game theory part of it, surely.
Knowing who has bought that's another thing to be keeping track of. Is you can have a second tab where you have a bracket set up.
Oh yeah,
you just set up a bracket in cells and start putting names next to them.
I would recommend sort by, because almost all of these are completely random what order they go in, right?
Yeah,
and I would sort them by region and then seed, right? And so
that's good.
And then you basically are like, okay, well, this guy's got the 1 seed in this bracket and the 4 seed that he's done there, right? And that kind of guesswork I think can pay dividends. I would also look for just in general reading body language when people are like and this is harder to do when people are pissed about what they ended up with. It's very easy to do when people are just like gloating about what a value they got on a pick. You know what I mean? Like I think it's very easy to hide. Okay, yeah, no, good bid. I like that one. That was fun. But if you are like, oh yeah, I got the guy I wanted. I came here for that team and I got him. Like that is extremely difficult to hide, I think. So try to do your best to.
It just the parallels to poker are high in this point.
Yeah, and if you're doing this completely, with one of the kind of automated, sites where you're not seeing people or talking except for the chat. Then I would recommend use the chat to try to get other people's reactions. You could distract them, in which case you could get a good bid, or you can just kind of feel out like, oh, this guy's, he's complaining, or he's, people are giving away some of their general feelings. The one last kind of thought about bidding that I wanted to bring up was try to be conscientious and don't piss people off. Right? Going up a nickel at a time is going to drive people fucking insane. And then you're not going to be invited back, and or people are going to specifically look to screw you on certain things.
That's a good kind of like know the ground rules, feel it out, and ask questions before it start. Like, because there's like we've done that where it's like I've seen Calcuttas make a rule halfway in, like, all right, we're gonna start bidding in increments of this because of
we're going up.
Randy. Like you guys. We're not doing this up $1 anymore. Like it has to be $5, it has to be 10, 2,500, whatever makes sense. So like know the ground rules and ask some maybe and be that guy. Like be the guy that says like, can we set a ground rule so we don't have that sort of shit going on? Like if it's $1 million pot and somebody's bidding $1 over, like people are going to be mad. Like you have to have some common sense, and it's good to just get that out of the way at the beginning. Talk about like how much, if it's just auctioneered by a person rather than a computer, like understand what the call is going to be. So it's when they say sold, it's sold, and they'll give a little time, or like understand that the minimum kind of increment as you're going up. There's a few things that just are going to make things go a little smoother.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I would also say, don't be a guy who's like, good bid, because if it was such a good bid, why didn't you fucking bid? You know what I mean?
I like how you're just like airing your grievances now.
Yeah. Well, no, I have to check myself because I want to be like polite and be like, hey, that was, I wasn't interested in that team, but I think you got them for a fair price, right? Like you do that enough times and people are literally like, well, are you blowing smoke? Or because like, why didn't you bid then if you think they were under their reserve, right? And sometimes, I'm saving my capital for later when some teams I had my eyes on and didn't end up getting, but that's okay. The general kind of way you conduct yourself in these is it's important. And at some time in your life, if you like these type of Calcuttas, I would recommend doing one in person. It's fun as shit. Same as like doing, fantasy football draft in person. Like it's very, 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 it's a lot of fun. And it'll be a rewarding experience. So that's about that. Any other wrinkles or fun stuff that you want?
No, I would just say like, don't overextend yourself over the next couple of days and be like, oh my God, it's Thursday morning and I have to I haven't filled out brackets because I entered 19 pools. Do what you have time for. Cause I've had that too. It's no fun getting past the first weekend and be like, fuck, why did I spend $1,000 on entry fees and then not take any time because I thought I wanted in all these contests. Like get in the right amount of contests, do what's right for you, have fun with it. The other fun ones are fun too. Like get into some weird ones because brackets are great. Yeah. There's so like Calcutta's, like we said, the bracketless bracket, the pools, the survivor leagues are a lot of fun. I know you guys, I never do get into the tennis one because I just feel like I'm drawing dead.
Oh, that one's so fun. That one's good.
Survivor League in basketball is a lot of fun. I've done that in years past. I got to just scour my email. This is the time of year you get emails from these random people that it's like, oh, I forgot I was playing this Survivor League every year. And I've got a bunch I got to sort through. But those are fun too, where it's like, hey, you got to pick 2 teams every day that have to win. Yeah. Then you can't use them again. Obviously, way different strategy, but man, just such a good time of year.
All right, let's talk a little bit of pick through some thoughts on this year's tournament and specific strategies for this year. You don't have to give me all the goods. I know we're in a couple of hotly contested brackets, not just money but pride. So you don't need to tell me who you're picking and stuff. Oh, great call. Do not enter to the tournament. Minus 4.4 units on playing games. That is a very, very good tip. All right. So true or false, the West is the region of death.
I haven't looked at the brackets. I don't even know who's in that one.
Are you shitting me?
It's Valspar this week.
Valspar. Okay.
Golf this week.
Look, I am
Dude, it's football free agency.
I am super dialed in on Indian Wells, so I completely understand. My biggest
NCAA
plus EV, I thought, bet to be that could have been made in Indian Wells today was Iga to win still at plus money.
Bet it.
I can't
bet on it.
I can't believe it.
I'm not telling you don't bet on it. That's the NCAA
so
thing.
One of the reasons that today was the best possible day to bet Iga to win Indian Wells was because two of the people who have a realistic chance at beating her played each other, which means one of the major equity holders of championship equity at Indian Wells was going home. Guaranteed. Sabalenka and Krejcikova played each other. One of those women was going home. It happened to be Krejcikova. Would have been better if Sabalenka went out, but I think Iga matches up very well against Sabalenka. Excited to see if that's your final. But you were going to gain equity on an Iga bet before she even took the court. And so it was
That's the best way to do it.
It was the best way to do it. And so the reason I bring that up is I look at the West as the region of death. I think it's absolute. It's absolutely gross how good some of those teams are, and particularly lately. Like, if I am a person who weights recency heavily compared to season-long stuff, I think the way you played in, the last month of the season matters more to me than the way you played in November, certainly. But I don't entirely look at that, but I care about it. And right now, 4 of the top 7 teams all happen to be in the West, and so the fact that only one of those teams can emerge will give you equity if you are shopping in other parts of the bracket, right? And in fact, there's even a little bit of a bonus, which is if all 4 of those teams make it to Vegas in the West, and we're talking Kansas, UConn, Gonzaga, UCLA here, if they all make it to Vegas, then there's a realistic chance that whoever emerges is like completely gassed. Right. This isn't like you get battle hardened, those games could be, wipeout material where whoever comes through is drawing dead against a team that's well rested. Right. Like this has happened. Absolutely. I can point to examples where this has happened in years past. So I would say that shopping outside of the West, even though those are where the good teams are, is almost by nature plus EV. If that's what you're interested in, does that check out to you at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's less so than what you see in conference tournaments where teams are forced to play like 4 games in 4 days, and and usually the the 4 days and 4 games in 4 days. It means you weren't one of the top 4 seeds in like the Big Ten or the ACC. So you usually ended up playing like a really high end team in the finals anyway. And doing that with tired legs and all of a sudden the jumpers look like shit, that can really start to look bad. I mean, you do get like 4 or 5 days off after the 2 games, but playing a bunch of tough teams, not getting a gimme or 2 early on, that definitely does add up. And I think so too. Like that's, this comes down to almost the same stuff we were talking about when we did talk Calcutta, was start to look at even breaking it down by half sections or half regions.
Yeah.
And just add up the efficiency numbers for all the teams using Torvik, Ken Palm, whatever, add up all the prices and start looking like, hey, this is the toughest region. This is the toughest section of the 4 smaller sections of a region. Like this is a grind. Like these are going to be, tired teams. These are going to be teams that have the toughest battles to get far. And if there is a team you like that's in an easier section, like it just turns it into, hey, this is probably even more plus EV than I originally thought. And I can agree with you there. I'm very high on the Big 12.
Yeah.
Kansas is very good. They ran into just a Texas team that wasn't going to take no for an answer. And
twice in 1 week. Yeah.
Twice in a week. And I did bet Texas to win it all. I don't give a shit. Because I bet Colgate to win their conference because they were just like clearly the best team and it wasn't even close. But that also speaks to, hey, your conference sucked ass. Like you're not actually it's funny too. I'm going to bet on Colgate because they're a 15 seed and it's part of the system. So I win either way. But like
The system.
I feel like Colgate gets run out of the building, and I'm a big Hook'em guy this year. So I don't do a lot of futures in tournament. It's just so tough. I usually will do them this time of year after the bracket's out. I'm just gonna play Texas. Play it game by game and get weird. But I'm a big Texas TCU kind of guy.
What's the system?
The system is betting all the 12 through 15s.
Okay.
You on Thursday you bet all 8 that play that day straight up to win.
Money
Go
line.
shop them. Money line straight up.
Okay.
No points. You bet them to win. And at the end of Thursday, you have a decision to make. There's 3 paths in front of you. It's like Robert Frost if he'd had a little more imagination. There's 3 roads you could take. You either say, "Holy shit, St. Peter's," or whatever. I'm trying to think if that was
St. Peter's beat Kentucky. Yeah.
Yeah. I just crushed a big one. I'm up. I'm gonna quit. That was
walking
fun.
away.
It's 7-9, Dan. It's never 7-9. That bugs me. So if you've crushed a big one, you can quit, and this is a very personal choice. if none of them have, if maybe a 12 and a 13 won, and it was like, hey, the 12 was plus 140, and the 13 was maybe 2-1, you keep going, but then there's 2 different ways to do that as well. And I always go with the second. And again, this is not financial advice. These are not big. Don't go nuts with this. I hate to see this just chalk out and everyone be mad at me. But if I haven't hit a big one on Thursday, I will double my bet size.
Double your bets Friday. Okay.
Because
it's coming. It's coming.
It's like 9 out of 10 years.
She's coming. She's coming.
It doesn't. You just go down and there's a risk of ruin in this one, which is fun.
Andy,
it's just fun to dance with the devil. But
give me your opinion on something, though.
Yeah.
First opinion: is this year's tournament flat Earth more so than any other tournament you can remember, where the top seeds are as vulnerable or more vulnerable than in an average year?
That's what scares me. Everyone's talking about that. It's going to go.
Do the prices reflect that?
And that's why it's a blind betting system, because the prices are probably pretty good. You just never know, like who's going to. Actually, I did like Oral Roberts that year. Like I did take him with the points in that game.
St. Peter's last year.
But the Oral Roberts over Ohio State, I think, was a 15-2. Sometimes you do pick a game and think like this team is clearly better and they have a shot, but that's why it's a blind betting system. I would have never predicted like Stephen F. Austin all those years ago. The Mercer over Duke game was sometimes they're just absolute aberrations where the price is fine. And it's just like, shit, man, Duke didn't show up. Mercer's not good. Like they just had their best day when Duke had their worst day. And sometimes you just end up with fun ones. So yeah. And that's the thing about the 12s. You end up with favorites. Like I still bet them because I don't ever dare.
Because the system is the system. Yeah.
I don't ever dare to,
you don't question the system.
Here. You don't
question the system. Yeah.
Like Middle Tennessee State over Minnesota was a favorite as a 12-5.
Yeah,
a few years back. Like that will happen. The only advice I could say is be like, the 12 prices aren't good. Round robin them then. That's what I do. I love that too. This is the truly degen part of my year.
If you think that the committee doesn't specifically pick 5s that are vulnerable and 12s that are good and underseed them, you're
Maybe
crazy.
Read more books.
Read more books. Go to the library, people. No, there's a they like that narrative because they want to give people what they want to see in week 1, which is upsets. They want that. That's definitely preferred. They don't care who necessarily, but they want to be like a 12-1. Oh my God, Cinderella.
You do not forget where you're at when you have a St. Peter's money line ticket sitting there.
No,
you don't
absolutely
forget.
not.
And the best part, I've told this story a few times. My favorite is the fact that most people don't know you're doing this.
Okay.
And you don't have to tell them.
No, you just have to be screaming with the winning ticket in your hand.
So my prime example was Middle Tennessee. It always comes to Middle Tennessee when they beat
Michigan State.
That was a Friday. So I had doubled my bets. They were 20-1 at the encore /win. We were at the topless pool, and there was there were some Michigan State fans there. I mean, all decked out in green. You should have seen those guys like 2 hours later. Like somebody had to carry them to the room. They just drank it away, but it was
that
fun.
Was an early game, right? That was
It's
like a
fun.
nooner, wasn't
yeah,
it?
so you're just like hanging out, and there's randoms, and you're talking to people, and you show them like, yeah, I bet Middle Tennessee straight up. I don't know. I just had a feeling. Like they don't have to know you place 15 other bets. Like, that's the fun part. I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of like a savant with these underdogs sometimes.
So you don't reevaluate and upstake after the early morning on Friday and go 4x on the late Friday.
Usually I'm in Vegas. And I don't have time to evaluate anything.
You can't keep going back
my
to
life choices.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Is there any truth?
Brings up sad news.
What's that? Oh, you're not going to Vegas.
It's spring break, and I made it. I don't like to disappoint the wife more than I already do. And I told her I would watch some kids this week, mine specifically, especially on Friday. So I kind of threw a wrench in going to Vegas, but we're going to. I mentioned this to good friend friend of the pod Brisket. I was talking to him earlier. All around, just really good dude. I finally got to meet him out in Vegas one time. I mentioned this to him. I'm like, we're gonna teach my son how to spend all Friday at the sports bar, and to the point where mom's gonna have to come pick us up. It was, Dad, why are we leaving your truck here? Yeah, because I've been drinking since noon, buddy. That's what we do. It probably just B-dubs. That's family friendly. But that is the plan. And then it's St. Patrick's Day.
Brisket, by the way, Brisket did me. Yeah, Brisket did me an extremely solid, and I will be going out there tomorrow night to have dinner with him and a couple of our friends. I'll send you the list from our we're going to Carbone, and the list of guests is A plus group of 6 of us going. I'll shoot you the.
I might go look at that old Christian Peanut picture
later,
like just to reminisce. I know. I'll be back.
Was great. Where was that? Golden Steer
next year.
Yeah, the Golden Steer.
Golden Steer.
Yeah. Sandman. There's some other.
Sandman
there was some classic. Jay. Nobody covers like Career. I can't remember.
Nobody covers like Career.
Nobody covers like Career. Okay. Couple any other lasting thoughts about this year's tournament other than you love the Big 12?
I love the Big 12.
Okay.
I guess should we just fade the Big 10 like usual? It's been like 30 years since they've done anything.
Have we oversold Purdue at this point as a collective?
Like everybody else is at this point. It's probably priced fairly, but Christ, there's a bit of a roadmap. Like, hey, here's this giant guy that takes 35% of their shots. Just stop him, and if their guards aren't going to get any better, then like. You ain't making the Final Four with that team.
Yeah, they play slow and they can't create turnovers either, which is the kiss of death. They are going to get upset. I can't wait to see it. I just don't think I don't think it's going to happen in the 116, but you never know. All right, any other kind of qualifiers about each of the regions? I would say the East is pretty chalky to me. I don't think there's going to be tons of upsets in the East. I think the upsets are largely going to happen in the double-digit heaven for me. Looks a double-digit and mid-seeded heaven for me. Looks like the South. I think there's a lot of good opportunity there. Drake, obviously, against Miami is one of my favorite looks. Utah State. They're 10 seed. That seems like an upset over the 7 seed Missouri Tigers waiting to happen. We'll see. But I know they're favored. I'm being sarcastic.
I was gonna say that every year we have that, and I just let it go.
Which round 1 game are you most excited to watch?
Tennessee, Louisiana.
Ooh, do you think the Raging Cajuns are live?
Oh, definitely live. That's a fun one. They're definitely live.
All right. Money line, Raging Cajun money line.
Well, obviously it's a 13th seed. It's already
in the queue. Yeah,
it's already in the queue. It's so hard. Go find the one that everybody thinks is going to happen and maybe lay the alt line on the favorite. It's like that every year. There's the one that just, oh man, this is happening. And the team just gets blown out. San Diego State, Charleston's an interesting one. We'll see. Charleston was kind of a darling that was going to get an at-large at one point early in the season that I don't know, the world just forgot about. I'm not super sold on the Mountain West like it was last year.
I feel like last year was the year they zigged. This year they zagged.
Yeah.
This year they zagged.
Auburn Iowa was really fun. Those are both teams that could kind of like the Houston little section's very fun. There's some teams that can beat Houston. I mean, anybody can beat anybody, I guess.
Auburn Live, they're playing that game in Birmingham. They gave him Auburn home court over Houston in the 1-9.
It's a
little weird.
Close enough, isn't it? That's a nice advantage for them. I'm trying to look it up too. It sucks for Oral Roberts because, like, as much as everybody wanted to dog on some of the blue bloods, and I guess, well, North Carolina's not here, guys, but Duke and Kentucky did pick it up. They figured things out down the stretch, and just a few weeks ago, it's like, man, is Duke like a 9 seed? What are we doing? So there's those teams did pick it up. I feel for Oral.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think they get past them.
One last important question for you, and then we can wrap. Ready? The most popular team picked on the ESPN's Tournament Challenge is who?
Just to win it all? Most popular team?
Yes.
God, it's almost usually just the favorite. It's probably Bama.
Bama is on what percentage of brackets as the national champion?
Like 13?
20. 20.2 percent of the brackets.
They were number one?
Bama. They were number one. Houston's number 2, 14.4. Kansas, 10.9. Purdue, 8.3. I could not have less positive things to say about Alabama potentially winning this title. It would utterly shock me. I would be more surprised if Purdue won than Bama. But Alabama looks to me like very, very susceptible to an upset. Have you watched enough Alabama? Do you get this? Do you have a take on why people believe in these guys?
It's one of the best defenses in the whole country, and the team scores. And you saw the SEC finals. A&M's a good team. That was a good squad. That was they have enough star power to get through their region pretty easily. Not easily. Nothing's ever easy, but no, I wouldn't surprise me if Bama won. They're in the Arizona region.
The South is
3 seed?
probably
Baylor.
The weakest.
Yeah, I'd go Bama Baylor in the region there. I guess I'm filling out my bracket live on the air. I don't know. I'd probably put Bama in the Final Four at a few of these.
You think?
They have legit players.
So I need to cool my jets a little bit on aggressively fading this Bama team.
You could get weird with it. Like, you could take some Baylor. You know how I feel about the Big 12, Drew.
I know. Baylor's not going to disappoint us like they did last year.
No, never. Honestly, okay. Santa Barbara, and then probably Santa Barbara, NC State, or Creighton. Arizona might get past Utah State. I don't know. It's tough to say. They'll play this tournament out. Yeah.
I think the SEC might be a lot worse than people think. And I agree with
you. It is at the bottom, very, very for sure.
Yeah.
The bottom of the SEC has been rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like football, man.
Also, Holt is pointing out one of the things that I have in the back of my head, which is, who never
Does
really
ever turn into bowl season where like, hey, I'm too big of a star to play hard.
What was the last guy who was like a bona fide top 3 draft pick who showed out in the tournament? Like, just out, like, carried a team. Like, it's really, really, really rare. Powell couldn't even beat an 8 seed last year.
I was going to say, the kid from Nova, he's on a team. Like, he wasn't a high pick, but
which kid?
His name.
Kyle Lowry?
No.
Nova?
It's escaping me at this point.
Yeah, I know. The diaper dandy effect there's just very, very few examples of a singular freshman carrying a team because ultimately at times in games when adversity hits, you need a little bit of experience.
DiVincenzo.
Okay.
DiVincenzo. There we go. Thank you, Battleson. Yeah. That was a fun team. I lost a lot of money on that.
The 7th man on the Warriors.
Yeah. He's playing for a decent franchise. So Brunson, I don't know. That's
Carmelo is probably the right answer, Dan. I think since Carmelo did it, I feel like
that was a fun run.
I was, and I feel like since that, I happened, I feel like a lot of people have looked towards the superstar carrying a team, and they've underwhelmed. Kevin Durant couldn't do it. I remember he was a super hot pick with Texas. Cade Cunningham in Oklahoma State didn't have it. Like the super hot freshman carrying a team to the title. There's just very, very, very few. Ja Morant. Yep, agreed. They got one impressive win, and that was it.
Man, Melo was like the original Scoot Henderson, where it's like, fuck, this guy is good, but
yeah, okay.
Remember how good Melo was?
He was.
It's crazy. It's like some teams going to be disappointed that they have the second pick.
Yeah, absolutely right.
That's still wild.
The French kid looks pretty good.
Speaking of shutting it down, as we kind of implied, I don't think a player just quits because they're a high draft pick, but you can if you're in the G League, because there's a lot of money to be made at that point, guys. So
I love it, man. All right. Well, best of luck in the tournament. Hopefully you guys found this insightful and interesting. If you didn't ever know about a Calcutta, now you do. And if you have any questions, or if you want any advice, or if you want to compare fair numbers, no guarantees I'm going to have time to deal with it tomorrow because I'm traveling to Vegas. But if I'm bored in the airport and I get your message at the right time, I may get back to you. Not a promise.
Nice you didn't, yeah. At least you didn't do the show from the airport. We've done those.
Yes.
What do you want to? Are we going to do some NFL? Bounce back to the NFL, some free agency talk.
Absolutely. We're getting an NFL guest next week, and we're talking free agency, and it is going to be a banger.
Building.
You know what, Andy? I just want to know where Aaron Rodgers is going to play next year. That's all I care about. I just keep refreshing Twitter because that's all I want to know. Where is Aaron Rodgers going to play, Andy?
It feels like
this is all the Aaron Rodgers show.
It feels like there's two outcomes and there's no in between. He either does the obvious thing and does his buddy a solid and gets him a huge amount of downloads and live watches by doing it tomorrow on McAfee, or he doesn't decide for months. Like, there's no in between. And God, I hope it's just tomorrow. I'm old. I dealt with this with Favre. We've all dealt with this with Brady.
Yeah, that's a good point. We haven't had the ESPN helicopters following Aaron Rodgers around to high school football practice yet, right?
Oh God,
it's coming.
The best one was when I couldn't believe it too. The Favre thing was a couple times, but when his plane landed in Minneapolis, it's like, what is happening? This is such a weird outcome for this whole saga. And that's what makes this even funnier, is the fact that he's taking that step to the Jets, just like Favre did. Although, man, if he still has anything left with a couple of those young offensive players and what they have for a coaching staff, that's
a good team. Yeah, that's
a crazy. Like, if I'm the Patriots, I am just tanking and rebuilding.
Oh, pissed. Yeah, you're pissed, or you're making a move for Lamar. That's really what I want to delay the free agency pod, is because we need to talk about like. True or false? Lamar goes to any team in the NFC, and they're automatically the favorite to win the NFC next year.
Yeah,
I mean, there's literally the losses that the Niners and the losses that the Niners and the Eagles have dealt with, combined with the fact there literally are no other good quarterbacks now in the NFC.
The Eagles. Maybe it's not a huge difference, but all the favorites in, anyone who's not the favorite, obviously, but all the division favorites, whether you say, Lions / Minnesota's not that far behind, sure, upgrades. San Francisco would love to have a quarterback. They've been dealing with, just doing it without a quarterback for a few years now.
Yeah.
The whole NFC South shouldn't have a favorite. My goodness. Just a mess down there. So all those teams would behoove them. That's crazy. So
we're not far removed from making some sincere statements that the Lions should be the favorites in the NFC. We're not that far away.
If they have a
good draft,
a good draft and one or two more free agency signings,
that's
like them. And it's them, the Niners, the Eagles.
If Lamar,
big drop off.
Exactly. If Lamar stays in the AFC, then we're talking Lions NFC favorites, really, which is
couldn't-
unfucking believable.
Couldn't put them ahead of the Eagles.
The Eagles have lost 7 of their starting 11 on defense.
I know, but I think the offense is going to be better.
Yeah,
which is more fun to watch.
Yeah, that's true. That's
So.
a good point.
All right, cool.
Well, let's wrap.
Let's call it a night.
We'll call it. Do a
Thank
full-on
you for
free
hanging
agency
out.
recap.
Hit the thumbs up on the way out. Sorry you went to a band concert, Patrick. I know that pain, and we'll catch you guys here next week. Because we don't want to not watch basketball, and free agency is important. 5-tier option bumped up a day as well. Tomorrow, 2 Eastern, live. 8 trucks, $8.